Probability is the likelihood that some event will occur. It can range from 100%, which means it will happen, to 0%, which means it will not happen, and anything in between. Be careful. You need to know that probability can never be negative, ever. If you have a negative probability, you've made a mistake and need to fix it. So let's look at some definitions. First, there's an event, and it's any collection of results or outcomes of a procedure. Simple event, an outcome or an event that cannot be further broken down into simpler components. And sample space, which is a collection of all outcomes from simple events. The notations you'll run into most frequently are P, and this just denotes the probability. Next is events. Events are typically labeled A, B, C, denoting a specific event, so event A, event B, event C, and so on. It's not exclusive to just A, B, and C, but these are the most common. And when you combine the P and the A, B, or C together, probability A, PA, this just denotes the probability of event A occurring. So that's all well and good, but how do you calculate it? How do you figure out what it is? Well, the probability of A is formally the number of times A occurs over the total number of the sample space. Another way to look at it is the total amount of what you want, which is what's in A, over the total amount of what there is, which is N. So again, it is important to note that when expressing a probability, it should always be written as a fraction or decimal between 0 and 1, 0 being 0%, 1 being 100%, unless it specifically asks for a percentage sign. Then you need to convert it from a decimal to a percentage. You can never have a negative probability or a probability that exceeds 1, ever. Your probabilities should always be between 0 and 1. So let's do a couple examples to get our understanding of it a little bit better. So let's start off with a single 6-sided die is being held in your hand. You want to know what the probability of rolling a 3 is. What is the probability of rolling a 3? Now, a die, for those who do not know, is just a cube with little black dots with numbers on it. So one little dot is 1, 2 dots is 2, 3 dots is 3, and so forth, going up to 6. So you have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on a die. A die is just a single cube. So it wants to know what's the probability of rolling a 3. Well, if you have the die and you roll it, it's going to come up with a number. So again, we want to know, when we're looking at probability, the number of times A occurs. We want to know the number, what's possible for a 3 to occur. A 3 can occur only one time on a die. So we can say that there is only one way to get a 3. So we can say that the probability of getting a 3 is 1 over the total amount of numbers on a little cube, on a die. There are 6 numbers, so it's going to be 1 over 6. So this would be the probability of getting it. Now, if you do not want to write it as a fraction, and if it prefers you to write it as a decimal, you can just plug it into your calculator, and we can get 0.16 repeating. Or you can say, if you want to round it to 2 decimal places, 0.17. So the probability of getting a 3 is 1 over 6 or 0.17. Both are acceptable answers. Now let's say you have the same die in your hand and you're going to roll it again. But this time you want to know what the probability of rolling a 5 or more is. That means you want to know what the probability is getting a 5 or a 6. So what is that probability? Well, when we roll it, we know we have 2 ways. We can get a 5 or a 6. We have 2 possibilities. So we can say that the probability 5 or 6 is going to be equal to the number of ways possible to get a 5 or a 6, which are 2 ways, over the total number of possibilities on a die, which there are 6. So we could say that the answer is 2 over 6, but we all know that we have to simplify it down, so don't stop there. We say it's 1/3, even though they are equivalent the same. But again, if you want the decimal answer, you would just put it in the calculator, and we would get 0.3 repeating, which we will just label that as 0.3 as the probability. So the probability of getting a 5 or more on a single roll of a die is 1/3 or 0.3 repeating.